What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of For the Love of Wrestling. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Happy Monday. It is good to see each and every one of you this Monday morning or afternoon if you are on the East Coast. Shout out to my East Coast fans. What a week of wrestling it's been, huh? What a weekend. Smackdown tribute to the troops, Rampage Collision, NXT Deadline, Final Resolution, and so much more. We won't be addressing the pay-per-views or PLEs today, as here we usually only cover the regular weekly televised events. Not sure if Noah's going to be doing a simple take or anything on any of those things. I do know our good buddy Dattila did a recap of Final Resolution, so you can find that on Rangers of Wrestling. But yeah, it is going to be an interesting show. Michael Vasquez pops into the chat room. What is going on, sir? Jeff is here. Good to see the boss man. Of course, you'll be seeing me and him together at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern for the dads. Not always on Wrestling Top 10 Christmas songs that aren't about Christmas, but we'll get into that again at the end of the show during the shills. Let's kick things off with SmackDown's tribute to the troops. Now, we did a watch along for this across the multiverse of media. And some people may be like, well, why did you do it? It was just SmackDown. No, it was about the tribute to the troops. And while we concede the fact that if we had known that if it was just going to be an average episode of SmackDown with the troops thing thrown in, then we may not have made a big deal about it. But it is the 21st anniversary, 21st episode of the tribute to the troops. Got to show the love and support to our troops. The War and Treaty began the show by singing God Bless America. And I'm going to be nitpicky here. It was a good performance, but I felt that they overdid it just a little bit. I'm the type of guy that likes to hear, the national anthem, God Bless America, America the Beautiful, just kind of sung simply. Call me a simple man of sorts when it comes to those songs, but they are simple songs. They need to just be simply done, not overdone or overstated. And I felt that they overdid it just a little bit, but that's just personally my liking and my tastes. It's not anything towards gospel music or whatever, because there are some gospel artists that I do enjoy. I do like certain songs that are sung in the church style. Just those three songs I've always felt need to be kept to a more simple way. What did you guys think of the War and Treaty's performance? Let me know. Am I on point with this or am I out of line? We then went to our first match, and it was the first match in the tournament to determine the number one contender to Logan Paul's United States Championship. And we had Santos Escobar versus Dragon Lee. And this was just a fantastic lucha match to kick off the show. There was a lot of back and forth action here. Dom was ringside, as of course at Deadline, Dom took on Dragon Lee for the North American Championship. Santos was able to hit the Phantom Driver, get the win. Post-match, Dom gets in the ring, kind of stands over Dragon Lee, holding the belt in the air, taunting him. We then went backstage and we had Randy Orton in Nick Aldis's office, and Randy pays his fine from RKOing Aldis last week on SmackDown. And he kind of asks Nick Aldis, why am I teaming with this guy, LA Knight? Who is this guy anyways? Can I trust this guy? And Aldis kind of tells him, it's a whole, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's like, you don't have to know him. You don't have to like him. You don't have to respect him. But he's got heat with the bloodline too. So you've got to, I want to see this match. Both of you have heat with the Bloodline. Both of you should team together to take on the Bloodline. Jeff chimes in regarding War and the Treaty, says, as a lifelong sports fan, I have long felt the anthems and pregame national songs are way overdone, overproduced. Okay. So it's not just me. Good to know that there's at least one other person in the chat that felt the way I did. We then had the American Nightmare. Cody Rhodes came out to the show and he began to talk about how special the night is. You know, how special Tribute to the Troops event is. And he thanks the men and the women that are there in attendance that have served and are serving. He thanks the men and the women at home that are serving or that are veterans. And then he throws to a video package of John Cena giving the history of the show. And something I didn't point out, JBL was on commentary for this show. And it's long been established that JBL was one of the main proponents of the Tribute to the Troops back in 2002, 2003 anyways, and getting the ball rolling. But as big of a role as JBL and John Layfield, the man, was in getting the ball rolling for Tribute to the Troops, I don't think anyone can argue the fact that John Cena was the face of Tribute to the Troops. So even though he just had his little mini run, even though he just went back to Hollywood since Hollywood came off strike, to have this little pre-produced video package with him giving the history of Tribute to the Troops, I thought it was a great way to integrate him into the show so that his presence was still felt on the show. We then had Cody talk about, you know, how the American dream still permeates in society and people still strive to achieve the American dream. Of course, a little bit of a shout out to his daddy, Dusty Rhodes. And then he introduces the Army drill team before his segment ends. They then brought Brad Nessler onto commentary, making it a 4-man booth. And as convoluted as a lot of people feel that a 3-man booth is, 4-man booth is just going to be even more chaotic. But it was a nice touch because Brad Nessler, along with being a football commentator in general, was going to be the man, the voice of the Army-Navy game that occurred this past Saturday. So to have the guy that was going to be the voice of the Army-Navy game there as part of Tribute to the Troops, I thought was a nice little touch. You know, we didn't have to go balls to the wall looking for celebrities for this show. We had a couple do the national anthem, the War and Treaty. We had Brad Nessler on commentary, and that was it. That was it. And I don't follow modern day music. I don't know how popular the War and Treaty are. I had never heard of them prior to tonight. And I'm not a football fan, a big sports fan anyways, aside from my hockey. So seeing Nessler there really didn't matter to me, but I'm sure it was a big moment. And Jeff's absolutely right. You know, great seeing JBL on the show, and it's never bad seeing Cena, especially in that context. And he agrees on Nessler, and that is the correct spelling, I believe. That's the way they spelled it on the screen. So unless they botched it on the production side of things, the way you spelled it's the way I spelled it as well. We then got to the next match in the number one contendership tournament, and this was a very interesting dynamic when it came down to things for me. Because it was Karrion Kross versus Bobby Lashley. And Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits are supposed to be this heel team. They have been heel. Granted, the Street Profits are still getting a babyface response because everyone loves the Profits, but they are supposed to be a heel team. And even if the Profits are getting a babyface reaction, Lashley still gets a heel one usually when they come out. But they made sure to announce on the microphone when they introduced Lashley that Lashley was a military vet. So he got a huge hellified babyface pop here. So are they going to just eat it and turn Lashley and the Street Profits babyface? Was it just a one-time thing, like a Bizarro World thing, where Lashley was a face here? I'm not really sure. But it was interesting to me the way that they basically had Lashley work as a babyface for this match. This was another good tournament match, despite its predictability, because Karrion Kross hadn't been seen on TV since SummerSlam, maybe. And he's not injured. They just had nothing for him. And it's a damn shame. Scarlett has been on TV more recently than Kross because Scarlett hosted Halloween Havoc with Shotzi. At least week 1. They appeared on week 2, but then they turned the reins over to Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. It was crazy. Kross was still made to look good in the ring, despite the fact that he was going to eat the pin, despite the fact he was going to lose. I'm hoping that Triple H is going to finally do something with him, because they definitely made sure that Kross still looked strong and didn't just bury him in this match. So hopefully that'll be a good sign of things to come. What is up, Big G? Good to see you in the chat room, my friend. Hope you're enjoying this Monday. We then had Damage Control backstage, and Bayley apologizes to the others for not staying backstage the week prior. And she offers to stay backstage once again this week, kind of make up for things, and suggests that everybody but Asuka stay backstage with her, just to kind of show that they believe in Asuka and the fact that she doesn't need them to win. Io says something in Japanese that Dakota translates and says that everyone except Bayley is going to still go and accompany Asuka to the ring. And now the fireworks hit. Static hit across the PA system. CM Punk came out to SmackDown. First time in almost 10 years. And this promo was a lot more of what people wanted from CM Punk. I still contain that the promo we saw on Raw was raw emotion from Phil Brooks. This was a CM Punk promo. He talked about Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, made an indirect comment to AEW when he talked about, Kevin Owens randomly punching people backstage, and you can't do that in 2023. He teases a little bit as to where he's going to end up signing, whether it's Raw, SmackDown, or NXT, and that he will make his decision tonight on Raw in the same building that he walked out of almost 10 years ago to the day. Now, let me talk about a couple things here real quick. I'm not going to get more in depth into the promo because I'm sure y'all have seen it a bunch of times by now. It was a fire promo. The fact that he's making his decision on where he's signing in the same arena that he walked out of the company on, I feel is some great poetic justice. You want to talk about some long-term storytelling? This is it right here. Because even though he's been back with the company for a few weeks now, once he puts pen to paper on a contract, he is officially back for that brand. And of course, the heavy favorites are Raw and SmackDown. There's a lot of people that feel that NXT is absolutely out of the question. And for the most part, I agree. But let me holler at y'all. Let me play devil's advocate here for a minute. And Big G, I do see your comment. I will get to it as soon as I'm done here about this. But let me play devil's advocate with you guys about why CM Punk should sign to the NXT roster. Okay? For this, you guys have to go back to the Best in the World DVD that WWE released back in 2013. where they talked about how much he loved working with the younger talent and mentoring them and trying to help show them how they can be better individuals. You have to remember that back during his Ring of Honor days, he was a trainer for the Ring of Honor facility. He was training the individuals that were coming through the Ring of Honor locker room before taking the WWE deal and coming to WWE CW. You have to remember that some of his biggest points of contention in the land of all elite was that he was trying to help and mentor and give advice to guys like Heyman Adam Page and Jack Perry. And they thought they were better than him to the point where they didn't have to listen to him. So have CM Punk sign the contract with NXT. You can still get around it in a few months. We're only about a month and a half removed from the Royal Rumble. Members of the NXT roster traditionally participate in the Rumble, and CM Punk all but announced himself in this promo on SmackDown. So we already know he's going to be in the Rumble. So you throw him in NXT. You know he's got at least a month and a half where he can work with and develop some of these guys. Maybe have a good solid program with somebody to help get them over. But then, even if he wins the Rumble to help finish his story by main eventing WrestleMania, he's still a member of the NXT brand until WrestleMania. So you've got Punk for a good 4 months, 4.5 months to really work with some of these guys. And 4.5 months doesn't sound like a long time, but when you factor in that as a third of a year, that's a lot of time for some of these kids, especially when they're on a weekly episodic television show and a brand that's getting ready to come to a major network like the CW. Punk's involvement in NXT for even those 4.5 months will do those kids a world of good. And then, once he goes to main event, once he faces Seth freaking Rollins, which is, let's be real, 99.9% where this program is going, and once he defeats him for the title, which, let's be honest, is more than likely what's going to happen, then Punk will take the reins on Raw. But he still gets that 4.5 months to just sink his teeth and his claws into the developmental side. That's why I think CM Punk should sign with the NXT brand. To Big G's comment, do you see babyface turn imminent for Bayley if Charlotte is legit hurt? I do see a Bayley face turn imminent. I saw whether Charlotte was legit hurt or not. Bully Ray actually brought up a really good point the other day on Busted Open, and I haven't heard the interview to hear the whole quote in context, but I've seen the quote kind of floating around. You have Damage Control turn on Bayley. And of course, this was prior to Charlotte's injury. So you have Damage Control on Bayley. Then you have Becky and Charlotte come down to assist Bayley, but it's still 4-on-3. And then you have Sasha Banks return. And if Charlotte isn't legit hurt, you roll into Mania with the 4 horsewomen versus Damage Control and make that the match. Again, that was before what happened to Charlotte happened. It could be serious and legit. It could be, bad. It could be an angle. We'll just have to see what happens in the developments. It is a stroke of genius, Jeff. I get where you're coming from, G, that Ron needs that big star. But as soon as he wins the Rumble, which is a month and a half away, he can be appearing on NXT and Raw. just like Dominic is appearing on NXT and Raw, just like Dragon Lee is probably now going to be appearing on SmackDown and NXT. Punk would be NXT exclusive for basically a month and a half. And then once the Rumble is won, he's appearing on Raw. He's appearing on SmackDown. He's appearing on NXT since that's where he's contracted. And once he makes the decision to go after Seth, which we all know is probably what's going to happen, then he's just doing Raw and NXT, Raw and NXT. And Raw still gets that Punk boost because of the fact that he'll be going after and chasing Seth. You should watch NXT a lot more anyway, Big G. NXT is freaking awesome. I saw the review last night. I saw a lot of people putting over my NXT, damn it. You know, we've been talking about Noah and Dattila for the better part of a year, have been preaching about people need to stop sleeping on Impact Wrestling. People need to stop sleeping on NXT. My NXT may not be where your black and gold was, but god damn it, it is great television on a consistent basis. You need to give my NXT a little bit more of a chance, bro. It won't let you down. So after the Punk promo, we see Punk backstage and he sees the Bloodline's dressing room. And he's about to knock on the door. But then he sees Kevin Owens. And he asks KO, have you seen Nick Aldis's locker room? And he tells him no. And just kind of walks away. We then get to the Charlotte Flair Asuka match. And right out the gate, Zelina, Mia Yim, Bianca, and Shotzi all come out and chase off the rest of Damage Control, leaving the match to be one-on-one. And it was a great opening, but a horrible finish to the match. And the horrible finish is no, I'm not trying to shit on Charlotte. I'm not trying to shit on Asuka. I know, Jeff, don't have a heart attack. I need you on the air in a couple of hours. The horrible ending just was due to the quote-unquote injury and the legitimacy or not. Because you could tell Charlotte was in pain. You could tell she was trying to hobble through it. And it just made the finish really kind of sloppy and bad. It's no fault of anybody else. There it is. I will give your NXT a chance. Thank you, G. Thank you. And we know, Jeff, you done said what you said about S'ing on NXT going forward. It will not be tolerated. But yeah, this Charlotte Asuka match, up until the spot that injured Charlotte, was a really good match. These two women have great history and chemistry with each other. And they're known for just delivering bangers all around. But as soon as that spot hit, man, the match just went downhill. And again, maybe they should have just called an audible, thrown up the X, gone home right then and there and improvised. But watching her try to do the figure eight, just painful. And you could even see Bayley kind of holding Charlotte before she pulled her, just kind of holding her to help her brace it to try to lock it in, and she couldn't. It was painful to watch. We then had CM Punk backstage in Nick Aldis's office. Aldis gave Punk the contract for SmackDown to kind of take home, look over. Cody comes in and the two conversate for a moment. Cody welcomes Punk back live on the air. It's really kind of fun to see those two interacting when you figure the last time they really interacted was in AEW. We then are backstage with Randy Orton and LA Knight. Prior to the main event, Orton asks LA Knight if he is ready, and LA Knight replies with, yeah. And it is time for our main event. Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa versus LA Knight and Randy Orton. This was a great main event match. Lots of back and forth action here. Orton and Knight looked good as a tag team. LA Knight's about to go for the blunt force trauma, but Orton spins Jimmy Uso off of him, hits the RKO. 1, 2, 3 for the win. Could there be a little bit of dissension here? Could this begin a little bit of a friendly rivalry? Almost an anything you can do, I can do better type of situation? Not really sure, but I definitely feel like a program with Randy Orton might help LA Knight here. What did you guys think of SmackDown? Let me know in the comments. We are going to take a brief, and I do mean brief, 30-second commercial. Show you where you can find all of the people associated with the Jeff Meacham Network Multiverse of Media. And make sure you have your hands ready to screenshot the images. That way you can find and follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram and Threads, on TikTok, on YouTube. See you in 35 seconds. So there you go. That is where you can find everyone affiliated with the Multiverse of the Media. NoDQ.com, Greg Cherry Brand, Rangers of Wrestling, Noah Foster, James Hebert, myself, Jeff Meacham, Big Baller G in the comments, Josh Mansfield, the Stat Boy and Stat Girl, and I agree with you, G. It does seem a little weird seeing Jimmy and Solo as a team. I do concur with that. We're moving on now to AEW Rampage. And I got to admit, man, for all the rampages that they've done here recently, this just really seemed to flow and move quickly. Like it did not feel like an hour. Orange Cassidy took on Angelico for the International Championship to start the show off. This was an almost 15-minute opening contest. And honestly, despite what I just said about how this show felt like it moved quickly, I feel like this match should have been a lot shorter than it was because I don't watch Ring of Honor, and maybe that's my own flaw. I don't have Honor Club. I have no way to watch it. But this match apparently stemmed from something that happened on Ring of Honor TV the past week. And while they did show us the video footage about it, the first time I'm ever seeing Angelico on AEW television. So I've got no idea who this guy is. I've got no idea why I should care about this guy. This should have been a squash match at the end of the day for Orange Cassidy. But it was an almost 15-minute banger. And while I'm not opposed to high quality matches, when you're throwing these guys on TV that the general audience has no idea who they are, why are we getting 15-minute matches? It just seemed weird to me. Again, it wasn't a bad match by any stretch of the imagination. It was just odd. Speaking of odd, we went from that, of course, Orange Cassidy won. Speaking of odd, though, we went from that to Abaddon versus Trish Adora. And I'm not trying to be funny here, but is Trish Adora a wrestler, a military badass, or a stripper? Legitimately asking. And here's why I'm asking. Obviously, she's a wrestler. She was in the ring, trained to competing against Abaddon. Okay, I'll give you that. They're mentioning on commentary what a military badass she is and what a strong woman she is. Okay, cool. Solidify the gimmick. Awesome. Why has she got dollar bills stuck in her tights like a fucking stripper? Like she just got done working a shift at the strip club before she came to work here and do this match? Don't believe me? Go back, rewatch this match on Rampage. She has dollar bills stuck in her tights. What the hell? I didn't get it. And then to boot, this match was the drizzling shits. This was quite possibly the worst women's match that I've seen all week. And that's putting this worse than the Asuka Charlotte match, which they suffered an injury and the match sucked as a result of the injury. Both these women were at least healthy. How is this match worse? I don't get it. Abaddon gets the victory. Lights go out. Julia Hart is in the ring doing her little gimmick that she does. Love Julia Hart. She seems to give Abaddon the title so that she can hold it and kind of touch it. And then the lights go out again. When they come back on, Julia Hart and the title are gone, and Abaddon starts freaking out. So clearly, they're going with an Abaddon-Julia Hart feud here. Okay. Not really sure any reasoning behind it, but whatever. We'll make it happen. Had a video package for a match that was going to be happening on Collision the next night from Mercedes Martinez and Willow Nightingale. Nice little back and forth promo for those two women. We then had Konosuke Takeshita and Popo Powerhouse Hobbs taking on Matt Sydal and the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels. And I love Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal. But this match was, again, a much longer match than it needed to be. We knew this was a squash. We knew they weren't going to let the alpha Konosuke Takeshita and Powerhouse job to these guys. This didn't have to be another 15-minute classic. Granted, I know Daniels and Sydal could wrestle like crazy. I have seen them wrestle for the better part of the last 18 years. Closer to 20 for the Fallen Angel. But Daniels and Sydal at this point in their career are nothing more than enhancement talent. It is what it is, and it's painful to say. If you disagree with me, sound off in the chat room, but they were going to lose. It was destined for them to lose. Just put them out of the misery. We then had a Top Flight promo backstage with Renee Paquette, and they basically accepted the challenge that Pentagon El Cielo Miedo put out to them last week to take on Commander, and I want to say El Hijo del Vikingo. Good little promo. Looking forward to seeing the 6-man action when it plays out. Main event for Rampage was the American Dragon Bryan Danielson versus Daniel Garcia. And dare I say, this was one of Garcia's best matches to date. He really seemed to dominate Bryan Danielson at points throughout the match. But alas, it just was not meant to be, as Danielson got the predictable win to gain 3 more points in the Continental Classic tournament. That's going to cover Rampage. We're going to take another really quick 40-second commercial, show you what's going on with the open mic night special events going from this month all the way through October. We will be right back. right, we are back, and the last thing we're going to take a look at today is Collision. Collision started off with Eddie Kingston versus Claudio Castagnoli in a Continental Classic match, and it was a good match. I'm not going to hate too terribly much, but it did border on boring. Another one that I feel just went a little bit too long. I'm noticing a lot of these Continental Classic matches, they have a 20-minute time limit and they're trying to push them over 15 minutes just to make the competitors look really strong. And I don't know if that's the way to go for every freaking match. So, I mean, maybe it's just me. Kingston was able to pick up the surprise victory here over Claudio. Really caught me off guard. Decent match. We then had a Jon Moxley promo on Swerve Strickland setting up their match for Dynamite. There will be another Continental Classic match there. Pretty good promo from Mox. And then we go to Renee Paquette backstage with Hook, and she wants to know kind of what's going on between Hook and Wheeler Yuta. And Yuta comes in and just carries the promo because we know Hook is a man of few words. That's part of his gimmick. And he talks about how he's a 3-time pure champion. And, Hook's like, yeah, a lot of honor by kicking Shibata in the balls. And Yuta goes back and forth about how, I can beat you with pure rules. I can beat you with your rules. So an FTW rules match is challenged to Hook. And Hook, of course, accepts it. My question here is this for either one of the championships? Because that wasn't made completely clear over the context and the course of this promo. We've got Final Battle coming up this Friday. Is this a match for the Pure Championship being contested under FTW rules? I need to know these things, Tony. You've only got a couple of shows to let me know these things. We then had Willow versus Mercedes Martinez, and this was a very good match. But I do feel that it also went a little bit long. Willow picked up the victory. First time she's ever defeated Mercedes. After the match, Mercedes and Diamante attack Willow until Statlander comes out and makes the save. Josh just popped into the chat. Like, subscribe, join, and super chat. Do it. Yes. All the things. Share too. Don't forget to share these videos. That's how my viewership and my subscriber count will increase, is you guys sharing the videos. Liking them will boost it up in the algorithms. Sharing it to social medias. If you're in any wrestling groups on Facebook, post it to your Twix accounts. Get the word out there. Thank you, Josh. We then went backstage, and Renee Paquette was with Cool Hand Angelo Parker and Daddy Magic Matt Menard, and they talk about their upcoming match this evening. Apparently, they're both Canadian. Did not know that. Getting to perform in front of their hometown crowd, in front of their family and their friends. The Outcasts and Anna Jay come in, and Saraya just kicks Renee out, saying that she's going to get really unladylike, and you don't need to hear this. And she starts to go off on Daddy Magic. You need to do something about this because Cool Hand Ange and Ruby begin their flirtations. I need to do something about this. You need to do something about this. Daddy Magic and Angelo Parker leave, and then Saraya goes off onto Ruby, just laying everything out. You need to prove yourself to me next week on Dynamite. You're going to have a match, and you need to prove yourself. Saraya is losing her shit here, all because Ruby is falling in love with Cool Hand Ange. We then had a Swerve promo to counteract the Mox one, setting up for their match on Dynamite. Good promo. Wardlow versus Willie Mack. Poor Willie Mack. I love Willie. Willie's a longtime friend of mine in the channels. But Willie just got decimated here. And you knew he would. Wardlow is on a roll. Willie is not a tiny boy. So to see Wardlow do his power bomb, knocking Willie out, really helped put Wardlow over, in my opinion. But man, poor Willie. And I saw some people in a group chat that I am in completely ripping Willie to shit, saying that Coco Pete Beware is better than Willie Mack. I don't even know how to address that. I don't. Willie Mack is leaps and bounds better than Coco Beware. I'm sorry. Maybe it's personal biased, but it is what it is. We then had a promo from the House of Black trying to tempt FTR to join them. I got to say, if FTR joined the House of Black, it would definitely be interesting, but I seriously doubt it's going to happen. Kenny Omega then took on All Ego Ethan Page, and they talk about how two of Canada's absolute greatest talents are going at it in the ring. Is Kenny Omega two men now? When did Ethan Page become one of Canada's greatest talents? When was the last time Ethan Page was on AEW TV? If he's one of Canada's greatest talents, he should be getting featured all the time, right? That's what I thought. Very predictable match here. Kenny Omega goes over. Post-match, we get a show of respect. And as Omega gets to the top of the entrance ramp, a big boot from Big Bill takes Omega out. Now, you'll remember post-Full Gear, Big Bill and Ricky Starks attacked Chris Jericho. Now they've taken out Big Bill. Big Bill's taken out Kenny Omega. So both members of the Golden Jets have now been laid out by the team. Apparently, King Mike is a fan. Ego, ego, ego. Backstage, we have CJ Perry with Lexi Nair. And she starts just boasting about Andrade El Idolo. Really putting him over, saying all these great things. And Miro walks in and was like, when was the last time you said that many nice things about me? And they get into a little bit of a lover's quarrel because CJ Perry tried to do what Miro asked her to do. She tried to stay home, just watch and listen. But as soon as he began to run her down on live television, she needed to make a point. And Miro once again promised that he will not get into Andrade's business during the tournament. But once the tournament is over, it's on. We then had a Julia Hart Abaddon video promo, again solidifying that this is a feud now, I guess. Not sure when they're going to do the match, probably at World's End. And then we had Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange versus Commander and Penta El Cielo Miedo. Again, good match, but predictable. Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange are just jobbers at this point. They've always kind of been jobbers. I wish they would stop being treated as jobbers. They've got great chemistry. They've got some good moves. They're over with the crowd, and especially with the Ruby Ange thing going on right now, they need to give these guys some victories. At least they're getting featured on TV, I guess. Had a Keith Lee versus Shane Taylor promo package, setting up their impending match, which I believe is going to be on Ring of Honor Final Battle. And then the main event was the American Dragon Bryan Danielson versus Andrade El Idolo. Again, this was just a tremendous main event. Andrade got down and dirty here, ripping the eye patch off, gouging Bryan in his eye, blood coming from his eye. Andrade got a surprise victory here. I thought that Bryan was going to be one of the guys to go undefeated in this tournament. But alas, he did not. He will not. Still a great match. All in all, like I said at the start of the show, this was a great weekend for wrestling. Between Rampage and Collision for AEW, between Smackdown for WWE, Final Resolution for the Impact brand, Deadline for the NXT brand. We had CM Punk on 2 shows. We had the Bucks on no shows. We had Hangman Page on no shows. Great all around. But I digress. What did you guys think of the weekend in wrestling? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to take a moment and show one final commercial. All the upcoming watch-alongs, beginning with Final Battle this week, going through the Bash in Berlin, and this is just everything that has already been announced and Adam Pearce style made official. And then if there's no super chats that come through, once this is over, I'll begin the plugs for the afternoon and we will get out of here. I will see you in 40 seconds.
3, 2, 1.
We are back, and looks like that is going to just about wrap things up for today. But very quickly, make sure you guys tune in at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, as Jeff and I will be doing the dads, not always on wrestling, top 10 Christmas songs that aren't about Christmas. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'm not going to give you any examples because I don't want to give away the list. But if you think about a song that you hear on the radio station during the holiday season, think long and hard. Does it talk about Christmas in general? Santa, presents, trees? Does it talk about the birth of Christ? If not, and it just sounds like a description of things that happen during the winter season, then it's probably a Christmas song that's not about Christmas. So, going to be ranking those. There you go. That's probably a good example. It's been years since I've seen White Christmas, but yeah, like Sister's Sister from the White Christmas movie. That's probably a fair shout there, Emmanuel. Good to see you. And then this afternoon, across the multiverse, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern, will be Meech's Musings. As normal, Jeff will have one or two things that he just kind of wants to vent and get off his chest. And then he'll go into the shills for the week, let everybody know what is coming up across the multiverse. Tomorrow, normal time, Stat Boy Sports Bar featuring Dory Lou. where the food is hot, the beer is ice cold, and the seats are warm. So pull yourself up a bar stool and engage in the professional sports conversation with your barkeeps, Stackboy Mike and Dory Lou. And that is 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, like normal. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow morning, same bat time, same bat channel, for another episode of For the Love of Wrestling, where I will be recapping tonight's Monday Night Raw. Until then, I am the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.